Hi, everyone. We're back to continue our conversation about the personal statement and address the question, why do you want to enter the dietetics profession? One thing I did forget to mention in my first recording that I'll say now, that's not directly related to that question, is that it is important if you apply to more than one program that you should individualize your personal statements for each program. My suggestion is to start with the program that you absolutely love the most. It's your top choice, your number one. That one will be the easiest to write. Then follow with your other programs. You'll find that the answers to most of the questions can probably be the same, with one exception. Usually, the question that asks, what other information do you consider important for the selection decision? That's the one where it's a good opportunity to individualize for specific programs. Though, depending on what things certain programs might consider, there might be other places in your personal statement where you would want to emphasize a specific strength or ability or experience because you know that that particular program values it. The ladies in the picture with me are not all, but many of our applicants last year on match day. We decided that many of them wanted to be together with their friends to get their match. And so we met at a local winery and shared the matching experience. And so that was a very special day. So the first question that is presented in DICAS is, why do you want to enter the dietetics profession? And many applicants actually start their personal statement with answering this question. It seems to just be a natural introduction. In fact, I would say most applicants start by answering this question. However, there is no expectation, there is no requirement that you answer the questions in the order in which they were given. And in fact, starting differently by answering a different question or perhaps with a story that's not directly related to this might actually bring favorable or positive attention to your application. So you have to do what seems right to you and an accurate expression of your personality. But typically, I would say this is the question that's the easiest to answer first. It's a good introduction. Remembering that most other parts of the application are all very similar. As I said before, you've all taken similar classes, you've had similar kinds of work experience, many of you have very good grades, recognizing there are variations in academic performance, but still, this is a place where your motivation, your interest is likely to be unique from others. And so you want to give some careful thought to that and definitely go beyond, I want to work in a profession that helps people. Because oftentimes that is what we want, but think a little deeper when you come to express it. You can express this from a very personal perspective. I have had applicants that have had a specific personal medical diagnosis that benefited from nutrition therapy. Several of our students at Cal Poly have had type 1 diabetes. That oftentimes will lead them to be interested in a career in dietetics. We've had a few with cancer. We've had a number with celiac disease, food allergies, obesity. Oftentimes, they're on the other side of obesity. They've lost a lot of weight and are excited with the healthful approach that they had to losing weight. And so they're eager to work in that field of practice. And we've had a number of graduates who have suffered from or experienced disordered eating, and they've recovered from that thanks to an effective treatment program. And that also has inspired them to want to continue on in dietetics. Additionally, beyond and outside of yourself, someone close to you may have experienced a personal medical diagnosis that benefited from or could have benefited from nutrition therapy. I've heard sometimes from my students that they had a grandparent with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or a form of cancer that seemed to waste away, and they felt that had there been a nutrition intervention, it might have improved the quality of their life or the outcome of their treatment. This happens to be my mother on the left, my mother-in-law on the right. Um, Both had disorders and diseases that benefited from nutrition interventions, diabetes, hypertension, and of course they were much older, but still, those are things that can have an impact on you. You may know someone with chronic kidney disease that is on dialysis or that is facing a transplant. Those are things that definitely have a place with and a relationship with nutrition therapy. You may know people with severe food allergies, severe to the point where they have to carry an EpiPen, and your ability to instruct them or their ability to receive instruction is critically important. Obesity can come into play here as well. I've had a number of students who have expressed great concern about one or the other of their parents or grandparents or even a sibling that struggles with obesity, and that has inspired them. And they may have seen someone with an eating disorder. They may not have it themselves, but they may have a sibling or a roommate that struggles with disordered eating, and that may have inspired them, their desire to help others that have had similar situations. In addition, so I included this picture, happens to be my internship cohort, and I'm going to tell a little story about that as I go on in this slide. Additionally, from a personal perspective, you may have had some other personal experience, positive or negative, that may be pushing you towards a career in dietetics. You may have a mom or a dad or another close relative that's a dietitian. And in fact, that's the case in this picture. The lady in this picture that's on seated on the right with the arrow pointing to her feet was a classmate of mine in my internship. I'm the one standing with the arrow pointing to my head. Um, Years after she became a dietitian, her daughter showed up in one of my classes, and I didn't realize that she was coming to Cal Poly. And as soon as I heard her name, I approached her after class and asked if her mother was this person, and she said yes. And she said her mom's positive influence had inspired her to become a dietitian. So it could be that. You might have had either a positive or sometimes a negative influence with a coach as an athlete. Sometimes coaches give out wonderful, accurate, scientific based nutrition advice, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes that will inspire you to bring changes to that particular industry. The same could be true if you were a dancer. A dance instructor sometimes give very solid nutrition advice, and other times they might rely on things that were more faddish. You might have seen Ellie Krieger on the Food Network. She's a very popular, media savvy, well-known registered dietitian who has had a very positive influence on many. And sometimes just seeing her in that area of practice excites you and inspires you that you'd like to do something like she's doing. You might follow an RD blogger and enjoy the idea of writing about nutrition at some point in the future. And you may have even seen something in the popular press, in a magazine. And I, when I first wrote that, was thinking of something positive, but you may have seen all of the fad diets that are out there, and you realize those are not healthy, those are not sustainable, and you would love to be a presence in the media world to present healthier, evidence-based approaches to life and health. So any of those things might also be personal inspirations that you would want to write about in this part of your personal statement. You may have had none of those personal experiences, and yet you may have, through school, through others that you may have developed a professional interest in some particular area of practice. You might be um, excited and enthusiastic about promoting human lactation or breastfeeding. You might have great concern for child obesity and where that's going here in the United States. You may have again, a great concern for people who are hungry and food insecure and want to make a difference in the lives of people that may not have had the same access to food that you've had. You might be interested in the farm to table movement. You love whole foods. You love the idea that students and children in schools can see food that comes from local farms, and that would inspire them to eat fruits and vegetables that are locally grown and tie that in with the nutrition program at a school. You may be excited about the idea of wellness and preventive health. You'd rather not treat people when they're sick. You would rather work with people while they're still well to bring changes to their lives. You may be interested in promoting a plant-based or a Mediterranean lifestyle. That also can be an effective motivation to lead you into a profession in dietetics. Or, as I said on the previous slide, you may be very concerned and interested in the idea of evidence-based nutrition. You've seen enough about fad diets and movie stars and celebrities that promote extreme approaches to health or weight loss or weight maintenance, and you'd like to bring the science to the table and yet make it interesting and understandable. You may have concerns related to malnutrition, and malnutrition occurs oftentimes in citizens of the United States, people who live in America but have chronic diseases and don't have access to all of the food that they would need for a healthy lifestyle. You'll learn, or you have learned in your clinical classes, about the malnutrition that can occur in acute care hospitals. That may inspire you. Or you may be concerned about the malnutrition that occurs on a more global scale in countries and regions that are severely impoverished with limited access to a variety of foods, and that may be inspiring you. And there could be so many others, but those are the ones that came to mind as I was thinking about these slides. So there could be many, many other professional goals that inspire you and lead you into the profession of dietetics. So think about all of that. As I said before, don't worry about the word count at this point. Brainstorm, brain dump, however you want to think about it, but get your thoughts out. Get them written on paper, add them to an electronic file. You could even do voice memos if it's easier for you to speak about it. Any way that works for you, get your ideas out there so that you don't forget. You can trim, you can edit, you can refine them later. Just start thinking about it. Get started with the process. Don't be intimidated by it. In the next video, we'll move on to the next question. I want to say one more thing about the idea of disordered eating. If you personally have a history of disordered eating, my advice is don't linger or say too much in your personal statement about the struggle. Focus on the RD or RDN that inspired you, and focus on your current healthy relationship with food and how you manage stress. If you talk too much about the disorder, it may lead the program director to think that it's still a struggle for you. And because of the stresses in an internship, while you technically can't be discriminated against because you have an eating disorder, it could be again, something that might cause your application to be scored lower, and you might never know that that was why. And so it's best to focus on the healthy relationship with food that you have now, if that's something that was mentioned that's a part of your history. That's all I'm going to say about that question. I'm going to move on to the next set of slides shortly, and we will be back in touch. Thank you.